Alright, this is Mr. Raj going over our pre-algebra work. If you follow these problems, you should do well on the test. Now, the first question on the test says 2x minus 3 equals 9. We'll change it up a little bit. We will do bear with me. We will do 3x minus 3 equals 9. Now the first thing we need to do is, or what our goal is to get this 3x by itself. In order to do that, we need to get rid of this minus 3 somehow. If we can get this minus 3 onto this side, then it will be easier for us to get the 3x, to find out what x is. So the first thing we would do is we need to add the reciprocal of negative 3. So what does the reciprocal mean? Reciprocal means anything that's the opposite. So if we have a negative 3, the opposite is positive 3. If we have a negative 4, the opposite is positive 4. If we have 1 over 5, the opposite is 5 over 1. If we have 5x, the reciprocal would be 1 over 5. These are all reciprocals. These are all opposites. Now, what we need to do is to get rid of this negative 3. So let's add the reciprocal of negative 3, which would be positive 3. And a positive 3 here. Positive 3 and positive 3. What happens is when we add the negative 3 with the positive 3, it becomes a 0. Right? So we're left with 3x plus 0 equals 9 plus 3, which is 12. We could rewrite the equation to this 3x equals 12. So what happens from here, let me change the color back to black, is we need to get rid of this 3. We need to get rid of this 3, so we're left with x somehow. So the best way to get rid of that is to multiply the reciprocal of 3x. So the reciprocal of 3x would be 1 over 3. 1 over 3. Whatever we do on one side, we have to do on both sides. 1 over 3. The 3's cross out. And same here. This will be 1. This will be 4. So we're left with x equals 4 over 1 or simply 4. So that's how we would do that problem. Now, the second problem it gave us was a little bit different, but it's the same principle, and we'll go over that. What if we have a minus 3x plus 3 equals 9? What do we do now, Mr. Raj? Well, it's the same thing. Let's not worry about this negative 3x. Let's worry about getting this 3 over there. So same thing, we need to add the reciprocal of plus 3, which is negative 3. So add minus 3 here and a minus 3 here. By doing that, these cross out, and we're left with negative 3x equals 9 plus minus 3, which is 6. Now we come to our problem again. We need to get rid of this negative 3. So keep that in mind, negative 3x. So let's rewrite the problem over here. Negative 3x equals 6. So the opposite of negative 3x will be, well, it will be 1 over 3. 1 over 3. Put these in parentheses. I didn't do that with the last one. That way you won't get confused. And you see what by doing this, these 3's cross cancel. We get 1 here and 2 here. But we gotta be very careful here, because this negative, then this negative and this x didn't disappear. So we gotta keep that in mind when we write it down, that it's gonna be minus x equals 2 over 1, or equals 2. Did you see that? We didn't forget about the negative that was in here. So what we gotta do is we can't have we could have negatives on this side, but what we do is technically we multiply each side by -1 to get rid of the negative. By doing that, then the answer becomes x equals -2. I hope you all understood that. If not, please ask me later on. We'll erase this, and we'll do another problem. Another problem that may be a little bit confusing for you all is this. X minus, we'll say 4 over 2 equals negative, we'll say -12 for here. So same thing. What we'll do is let's get rid of this 2. So let's multiply by the reciprocal of that 2, which will be this. 2 over 1 on that side, parentheses, and 2 over 1 on this side. What we're trying to do is get rid of that 2. So these 2's cross out, and there's nothing to cross out on this side. So let's rewrite the problem. So we get x minus 4 equals -12 times 2, or x minus 4 equals -24. Now, you all becoming experts here. We gotta get rid of that 4. We gotta move that 4. We gotta move this -4 somehow to this side, or we gotta get rid of it rather. So we'll add the reciprocal of -4 to both sides. So the reciprocal of -4 would be +4. So let's add +4 here and +4 here. And when we do that, these 4's cross out. So we're left with x equals -24 plus 4, which is minus 20. Simple enough. Now, let's do another problem that was on the board, where you all may be a little bit confused. Another problem that was on the test that I think we all may need a little work on is, let's say 3r plus 2r plus, so let's say 3 equals 20. So what we gotta do is first the parentheses we need to work on. When we have this parentheses, this 2 has to be multiplied to this number, and this 2 needs to be multiplied to this number. When we do that, we're left with 2r 2 times 3 plus 6. I hope you all see that. Let's bring down this 3r equals 20. When we add the like terms, which would be this 3r and 2r, we're left with 5r plus 6 equals 20. Same thing here, we gotta add the reciprocal of 6 plus 6, which would be, let's add minus 6 to both sides to get rid of that 6. And then we're left with, 5r. Only write that a little bit bigger. Left with 5r equals, what's 20 minus 6? Oh, I believe it's 14. Let's bring the problem over here. So we're left with 5r equals 14. What do we do is we need to get rid of that 5. So let's multiply by the reciprocal of 1 over 5 on both sides. This cross cancels. We're left with r equals 14 over 5. And if we do the math, we could figure out what that exactly is. Which is, which is about 2.8 after you work it out. Alright. Now, another problem that was on the test that you all struggled with a little bit is this very long one, which I'm going to try to go over. Actually, let's see. So the problem was 5, and then we had brackets 2. I'm going to change a little bit to x plus, we'll say 3 over 5 brackets equals, we'll do 3 times 2. Now don't be alarmed with all these big numbers. It's not that hard. So first thing is first is, let's see if we can simplify a little bit. Or what I would do is get rid of this 5 here. This 5 is annoying. So what we'll do is we need to multiply the reciprocal of that, which would be 1 over 5 times, on the same side, 1 over 5. Alright. Put that in brackets or parentheses. So what happens is this cross cancels. Did you see that? So now we don't have to worry about those big parentheses anymore. Now we're left with just 2 times 2x plus 3 over 5 equals, well, we'll simplify this 3 and 2, so 3 times 2 is 6 over 5. That's much easier to deal with now. So what I would do is, I would get rid of the 5's again, and that would be easy. So let's multiply both sides by 5 over 1. Getting rid of these 5's, and we'll multiply here 5 over 1. By doing that, these reciprocals go away, these 5's go away. Now we're left with a pretty easy problem. Now we're left with 2 times 2x plus 3 equals 6. Let's simplify it. 2 times 2x is 4x, and 2 times 3 is 6 rather, equals 6. Alright, let's rewrite the problem over here on the upper corner. 4x plus 6 equals 6. Well, what I would do is get rid of that 6 by adding the reciprocal of it. So the reciprocal of positive 6 is negative 6, the inverse of that. Negative 6. This cross cancels, and this cross cancels. Well, look at this. This is a little interesting. So we're left with 4x equals 0. But we need to get rid of that 4. So I will multiply by the inverse on both sides. And then these 4's cross out. And we're left with x equals 0 over 4. Or you could say 0. X equals 0. So that wasn't too hard to solve. Let's clear it out. Let's go over another problem that was giving you all a little trouble. So we have x squared, let's say, times x to the third times, let's say x to the 5th. So when we have this like that, we're basically adding these exponents. Okay, do you see that? We're just adding these exponents. So we're left with x equals 2 times plus 3 is 6, 6 plus 5 is 11. Now, however, if you see this, let's say 2, and then maybe the exponent, another exponent 5, then we have to multiply those two, and then we get x equals 10. So I hope you all see the difference. It's the parentheses. You could say this: parentheses u equals multiply. All right. But when you see these dots or other multiplications, it means to add. I hope that makes it clear for you all. Another issue that I saw with your test is your negatives and your positives. And I'll quickly go over that. So let's say we have 3 times negative 3. The answer is going to be negative 9. But if you have negative 3 times a negative 3, your answer is going to be a plus or positive 9. Two negatives equals a positive. So I hope you all see that. Now if you have 3 plus negative 10, just want to let you know that if your negative is a higher number, the number is going to be negative and you're going to subtract. So the answer would be, since the higher number is negative, it's going to be a negative number 1, and we're just going to subtract, and we get 7. So I hope that helps you out with your pre-algebra so that you can ace this test with no problems. Alright, hello class, this is Mr. Raj. We'll be going over examples that will be on your or that are on your Algebra 1 test. This is an opportunity for everyone to study what they may miss in class, and an opportunity for you to succeed or to do better on the test or to redo the test. So let's start now. So on the test, excuse me as I set things right. Now on the test, you will see the square root sign. So this is called the square root sign. Now when we see the square root sign, this is the same thing, equal to this. Now the reason that the first one doesn't have the 2 is because it is known that this sign means that there's a 2, that this is the square root of. So let me just take that out. So the square root. So what the square root is, we're trying to figure out what two numbers times itself will give us 81. That is called the squared root. So when we put 81, we see that 81 has two factors, 9 and 9. So the answer would be the square root of 81 equals 9. Now also, if we were to put, let's say, what is the cubed root? You see that? Because there's 3. The cubed root of, let's say, 8. We're trying to figure out what 3 numbers times itself 3 times will give us 8. Well, 2 times 2 times 2 does, because we know 2 times 2 equals 4. 4 times 2 will give us 8. So the answer for that would be 2. Now what about the, let's say, the fourth root of 81? What would the answer be? Well, with 81, we know that the square root is 9 and 9. But 9 can be divided as well into 3, 3, 3, and 3. You see we have 4 3's. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the fourth root of 81 would be 3. Now, let's erase all that. Another thing that we may need to go over that may be on the test is negatives. And I'll draw a few examples. So let's say we have negative square root of 25, minus the square root of 25, or negative 25 inside. So inside the square root, you see the differences. We have a square root here in the inside and a square root on the outside. So what will our answer be? Well, our answer will be negative 5 because we're simply removing the square root, and the sign that keeps after it is negative 5. Whereas for this, we get 5i. I stands for imaginary because you cannot have negative 25 be broken down. If we break down negative 25, one of the numbers could be positive, one of the numbers could be negative, both could be positive, we're not sure. So that's why we just have I as imaginary, meaning we're not sure. Now let's erase that. Let's go over cube roots and etc. Well, 3 times the third power. So when we have third power, let's say we have 3 times the first power. And let's say we have 3 times the second power and 3 times the third power. Well, the answer for the first one is 3. Answer to the second one is 3 times 3, which gives us 9. And for the last one, it's 3 times 3 times 3, which gives us 27. Now, just for the fun of it, let's also square it, or write the squared root for that. So we know the square root of this would be 9, and we know that the triple root for this would be 27. And it's interesting, when we solve it, we see that this equals 3, and we see that this equals 3. I'm sorry, I forgot to put my 3 in there. So as you can see. Now, let's erase all that. Let's try to solve this problem. So we have 5 times 3 plus 40 plus 40 in the square root. First thing we need to do is we need to multiply 5 times 3. Then after we get 5 times 3, then we add that number to that, to 40. So if we were to break it down, 5 times 3 is 15. That will be our first step, plus 40. And then 15 plus 40 gives us 55. Now, let's check to see if we can break 55 down to 2 equal numbers. Well, the factors of 55 that are in my head are 5 and 11. So there's no perfect square for 55. So the answer remains as square root of 55. I hope you all got that. Now let's try to figure this out. Another example. We have 8 minus the square root of, we'll say 49. First thing is we have to find out what the factors of 49 are that are identical to each other, two numbers. Well, 7 and 7 are perfect. So let's rewrite the problem. So we're left with 8 minus 7, which equals 1. Now the example I wrote in class the other day was 10 minus the square root of 25. Same procedure. square root of 25 can be broken down into just 5 and 5. So the answer will be, when we write it down, 10 minus 5 equals 5. Now another problem that we have to understand is something called absolute value, where we have these bars. So the example I have is 5 minus 10 minus the square root of 9. First thing, square root of 9. First thing we need to figure out is what is the answer for what's in these brackets. Well, 5 minus 10, or 5 minus 10 is negative 5. Then we have minus 9. So what's minus 9? If 9 can be broken down. 9 can be broken down into 3 and 3. So let's rewrite the problem. We have negative 5 and the brackets minus 3. So what do these brackets mean? These brackets mean absolute value. So it doesn't matter if the number is negative or positive, the answer will be positive. So even though this is a negative 5, when we remove the brackets, the number becomes a positive 5. That's the magic of the brackets. Then we bring down the minus 3, and we get 5 minus 3 equals 2. And that should be your answer. Looking in the paperwork I gave you, it looks like I made a mistake with instead of having minus 3, I have, I'm not sure where I went wrong. Oh, 5 minus 10 I wrote down as negative 4, should be negative 5. Alright, now next example. Let me erase all this. Is 5 plus 2 times 3 plus 6. We have to use the distributive property first. The first thing we would do is take care of what's in brackets. So let's fix that. So we have 5 plus 2 times whatever's in brackets, which is 3 plus 6, which is 9. Now we have to do multiplication, which is 2 plus 9 becomes 18. Bring down the 5 plus, and we're left with 5 plus 18, which equals 23. Easy does it. Now let's erase that. Another thing we need to understand is fractions. So let's say we have 4 over 5 divide by 8 over 20. What we have to do is change one fraction. So we'll choose, I usually change the fraction that's on the right hand side. So we need to change this fraction, everyone. But what I mean by change is we need to reverse these two numbers. The numerator becomes the denominator, and the denominator becomes the numerator. Let me rewrite it and show you what happens. So when we rewrite it, we get 4 over 5. This becomes multiplication times 20 over 8. As you see, we switched the numbers. Now we can easily solve it. If we cross cancel, we know 4 goes into 8 2 times, so we'll cross that out, and 2. And we know 5 goes into 20 4 times. 1, and 4. So if we solve it, we get 4 over 2. Which, if we were to reduce that even, we know 2 goes into 4 one time. 2 goes into 2 one time, and 2 goes into 4 two times. So we get 2 over 1. So the answer is 2. Another thing we need to keep in mind, 2 over 1 is the same thing as saying 1 divided by 2. Make sure you all remember that just in case when you're working out the problems. You ready to solve this? Here's a little bit more complicated problem. Bear with me. We have 3 plus 1 in parentheses. Then we have in these brackets 4 minus 12 divided by 3. First thing we need to do is simplify what's in parentheses. Simplify this right here. So when we simplify it, we get this. 3 plus 1 is 4. Put our parentheses around it. 4 here. Bring our brackets down. And write the rest of the formula. Minus 12 divided by 3. Now once again we have to take care of what's in the brackets, which is all this again. So we know 4 times 4 is 16. Now we're just left with brackets, which function the same way as a parentheses. Minus 12 divided by 3. The next step we'll take is division here. So what we'll do is 12 divided by 3. So we're left with 16. 12 divided by 3 is 4, so negative 4. So we're left with 16 minus 4. Now if you were to do the math, 16 minus 4 will give you 12. So the answer to this problem is 12. You ready to solve this? Another thing you're going to see on the test is multiplying or adding exponents. So we have 4 here to the 3rd power and 10 here. So you see 2 exponents, 3 and 10. Another example that will be on the test, let's say, is x to the 3rd power times x to the 4th power. So the theory is, when you see something like this, because there's parentheses for this one, we're basically multiplying 4 to the 3rd power 10 times. So since that's the case, we can just simply multiply the exponents 3 and 10, which gives us 30. So the answer will be 4 to the 30th power. Now with the other example though, it's a little bit different because all we're doing is adding times see, so we have 3x's here, and we have the 4x's here, and in the end when we multiply them, we're basically adding, in this case, with the x's, and then the answer would be x to the 7th power. So that's how we do all the problems that will be that are on the test for the most part. It's pretty easy. and I just went over everything with you. If you have any specific questions, please get in